لله لا نحمي الجبال غرباء وارتضيناها شعارا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome back to the strangest podcast in the dunya, Siraat Al-Ghuraba, Path of the Strangers.
Oh
My
snap! Okay.
name is Hudayfa, and I'm joined with my two lovely co-hosts, Brother Zahid the Ascetic and Brother Abdullah, the Slave of Allah. MashaAllah, how are you guys doing?
Alaikum
Doing
assalam.
well, man.
Alhamdulillah, man.
Can't
What's
complain,
going
man.
on?
Zahid, you seem to be occupied with something. Let's
No.
yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just seeing names. Okay, go.
Just just think about everything that I thought I was gonna say. Like it just gone from my brain as soon as you started that song. The intro to Sheila.
Yo. Okay, hello. ChatGPT, give me amazing fan base names.
That's okay. Right. So this is a rejuvenation of our podcast. Alhamdulillah, we have our new brother Abdullah. I'm not sure if we've released the prior podcast episodes with some of our past co-hosts, but alhamdulillah, this is the mashallah, the new fresh team, and we're excited to have Brother Abdullah join us. Mashallah, slave of Allah.
Assalamu alaikum.
All right, before we ever talk about what we want to call our fan bases, let's talk about today's topic. Today's topic is it's been on my mind for some time, actually for quite a long period of time, ever since maybe I don't know when. So the topic for today is Sunday schools, and I guess you could also throw in Saturday schools because weekend schools, but typically it's Sunday, right? For us Muslims here, I remember when I first came to America, I think I don't know if when we got settled in the neighborhood. This is like area of northwest suburbs.
Shout out.
Shout out. The Sunday schools over there were relatively popular, and it was like the Muslim kids when you see it, you see at Jummah, some people would talk about it, and we at first never went to it. And then I had a brief experience with them. I'm sure I'll get a chance to talk about later, but and then later reflecting on as we grew up, as we went through high school, went through college, and people go through these Sunday schools, and now, my local community, people, I'm starting to get, I'm even getting the opportunity to get involved with Sunday schools in terms of like organization and stuff, and I'm sure you guys have some similar experience as well. But the question I want to pose to you guys today, and inshallah we'll build upon this and discuss it further, is what do you see the role of Sunday schools, weekend schools, in the life of a Muslim youth these days? I want to see what you guys think.
I don't know who wants to start, but I can throw something in whenever you want to jump inside. Go for it. But I think Saturday and Sunday school oftentimes, like, it's interesting because growing up, we were always told to focus on school, and we were also the Monday through Friday, and we didn't really have too much of a connection with Saturday and Sunday school. Although I did teach later when I got older, and one thing I noticed that a lot of people would complain, about Saturday and Sunday school, and they would say, they would go there, they wouldn't really learn that much, or they wouldn't really have like a deep connection with what was being taught. On the flip side, I did have people that loved it and volunteered later as they grew older. So I think it really is a case by case thing. I've seen some positive instances where people really enjoy their time on Saturday and Saturday school, Sunday school. But I think the main thing when you're a kid, it's like, man, my free time. My parents are dragging me to this, 4 to 5 hour adventure every Saturday or Sunday, right? So I think there are pros. I think there are some things that growing up that I definitely was kind of happy I wasn't really forced to do it. But my parents always encouraged us to learn about Islam. I think I'll start there, and maybe we'll decide.
Did your community, Abdullah, where you grew up, have an opportunity for something of that nature?
Actually, very interesting. Not really. I think I grew up around like the not, but my area, the masjid that was there, it was still building like its foundations at the time when I was like growing up. So it was not at the level of having like a whole Saturday school or Sunday school. I think they had some programs for the youth, but it definitely isn't on the level that I see today.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, from my experience, I mean, there was Sunday school at
During your age
it was
range,
there. No, it was there even like a Neek one or something like that, or like Quran classes and stuff.
Quran classes, yeah, that's different.
There's Quran classes, I think, but it wasn't too like spread out in the community, at least in our circles.
Well, hold on. Quran classes is not Sunday school.
I'm pretty sure there's a Sunday school, although, bro, even
Okay.
back then.
Well, because the massages, they have their Quran classes, which is like after school, right? But then
there
there's
wasn't
Sunday
the whole academy. There wasn't like an official academy for Al-Huda.
Yeah, no, there wasn't. But for us specifically, we just never got too into it. It was kind of a luxury, to be honest, to go after your 8 to 5 or 8 to 3 school, Monday through Friday, going to another school, getting involved and getting booked in those classes. It was a bit tougher. So my parents, my family were just focusing on just surviving. So we never really had the luxury to go to the summer school growing up, more so. But growing up, I did have friends, that would go. People in my classes, who would attend these Sunday schools, summer schools. It was interesting to see, right? Because it was always kind of like a tight knit group of guys, community that I would see in school that would be going to Sunday schools. Whereas I was kind of on the outside, not attending those, but kind of knowing these guys more on the outside orbit. So seeing that difference growing up, knowing like, there's all those like brown group of dudes that know each other, that would, be really close. That was something I wasn't really involved in until later on.
And maybe we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah,
but,
Abdullah, please go.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like you mentioned, there were a group of kids that would go, and I think I did notice a difference. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of times at that age when you're, 4th grade to 6th grade, you're maybe even younger than that. A lot of times you don't really get the answer of why you're doing something. Why is something, why should I follow something? Of course that your parents say, it's good, it's from Islam, and Islam generally means, khair, so you follow it. And I did notice that people who did go to Saturday Sunday school, they knew more du'as, they knew more stories of like the Sahaba than I would say average kids that just went to elementary school. They obviously knew these from khutbahs, they obviously knew this from their parents, but I think that was really memorized and drilled into kids that went to Saturday and Sunday school.
Oh, that's interesting. That's actually a very interesting point, and I kind of want to build upon that. But actually, before I go there, my question initially was, what's the role of Sunday schools? And I don't know if you guys get to chime in on that, but please go ahead, and then I'll offer my thoughts.
I think it's a kind of a synthesis of what I was saying earlier. Is that at that age, really, you need sometimes you need that extra push just to learn, your basic adhkar, knowing how to do dhikr like after namaz, knowing how to do different acts of ibadah, or even memorizing a lot of the du'as that are important. I think it does build a foundational level of knowledge that people who did not go to, that just went to public school and just didn't do anything on the weekends, didn't have. And I think you really appreciate that knowledge after you go there and after you're done with that schooling. If you then I guess, do you take that with you later on? I guess that really depends on your environment afterwards, the one that you build after, going to those Saturday or Sunday schools. But what was your experience, Hudayfa? I guess we can jump into that as well.
Sure. So there's a couple of interesting things that you said, but so to answer your question, what's my experience with Sunday schools? So I was trying to think. So in Pakistan, I grew up basically first half of my life in Pakistan, and Pakistan schools, regular to think of regular school, but then you have in terms of Islamic education, it's not like an Islamic school; it's just a normal school, and you have this one period, one class. I think it wasn't even every day. It was maybe because you don't have a same schedule every day. It's like you have a week schedule, and then some classes, obviously like English and math, you would have every day. But then there'd be classes like PE or even music, you would have a couple times a week. But then the other class you would have a couple times a week is Islamiyat. That's like your Islamic class, where where you would learn very basic, like Siraat, very basic. And then I don't even recall, maybe it wasn't like you're not learning Quran or anything there. But I don't know if we. No, the reason I brought that up was because that's your in school Islamic education. Everything else has to be done outside. And I think that's where maybe Sunday schools or weekend schools or I think at the time, yeah, with weekend schools or weekend classes, it would come into play. And here in America, when we came here and we started exploring these after or weekend Islamic programs, so my experience was uh, it was I went for like a day, and then I was like, dude, that's not for me.
Really?
I think I told my mom straight up because I think my mom was
What turned you off? What turned you off?
I'd love to build upon that maybe a little bit later on, but so my mom I think maybe just because talking to like neighboring Muslims and people she knew at the masjid,
Yeah.
encouragement I guess to put your kid in Islamic school, otherwise he's gonna hang out with the wrong crowd or whatever. Hint, wrong crowd. I never mind. But like after a day, I was like, and I'll build upon this later maybe, but I didn't see. I didn't see. So the role of it, what I understood to be was, number one, I would say, stay connected with the Muslims in your community, because in our schools, you have, at least in my school, there was only a couple maybe that at the time in like middle school, but so at Sunday school, you have a couple neighboring cities where you come together, where the Muslims of that come to a school, that area come together, and you maybe get to know them. And then number two, I think you said it well, where it's like, okay, you learn some stories about the Siras, learn some stories about the Sahaba, you memorize certain du'as, but I think sure that can be a role of a Sunday school, but the thing I wanted to actually build upon the most today is, I think there's an over expectation from Sunday schools, and what do you say? Like parents, what I've observed is that parents expect too much out of Sunday schools, where they let their guard down as a result of it. Where it's like that's the only thing, or not the only thing. That's like just because my child, I'm sending him to Sunday school, he'll be fine. And I think that's a very short-sighted mentality, and I think will serve the Muslims, the youth, poorly, and as a result, your family poorly. So so I think we can build upon my I'll just mention it real quick. I don't know how much I want to say, but so we went to I went to a day of school, and number one, dude, and this is not to I didn't mention which one, which exact school I went to,
You
but
got it in, but it's okay.
I just mentioned the community I was in. So number one, dude, I remember so I knew maybe a couple people in the class that were in like that sixth grade class. And dude, it was impossible for the teacher to even get like the attention of the students, where it's just like everyone's just trying to crack joke and making whatever noises that they want, that the teacher literally couldn't get a word out. Someone's laundry keeps going off in the background.
Sorry about that. My dryer is a dry run, so that's when the dryer's on. You know what I'm saying?
No worries, we'll edit that out. So number one, that's like my first impression. I was just like, I don't even want to like say anything. I'm just sitting there. I was sitting, I think, in the corner of the classroom. And I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
And then number two, I low key saw some like shady stuff going on between the guys and girls. Like they were like messing around, messing around with each other. Not like anything crazy, but I like for a Muslim school, I was like, yo, there should be some like strict separation, and like this isn't normal school. This is not supposed to be normal, like your elementary public school where it's like, guys and girls do whatever. So that's what I observed. And then number three, it was again like people are just waiting to get out. Like people are just waiting to get out on the basketball court, and no one really wanted to be there. So, but the first two particularly, for me, was like, I'm not sure if this is the right place for me. I'm not sure if this is where I'm gonna even get to know. I don't know if this is gonna be best for me long term.
But really quick, I think you bring up an interesting point, at least when you're talking about, in retrospect, seeing, the kids in the class or the behavior of the students and whatnot. And that kind of brings a memory in my head. I remember looking back, especially as a kid. From my understanding, I thought Islamic school was supposed to be, again, a group of Muslim guys going to whatever, learn Islam, learn the Siraat, learn Surah, learn the Quran, and whatnot. And to an extension, of course, that's what it is. But it'd be weird because you'd expect, that certain group of people to have a higher, a better character, right? Carry, Islamic values more, adherently to themselves. But it was always interesting because, looking back, especially in retrospect, it was always the kids that I knew that went to Islamic school. And obviously, this is not everyone, but a lot of them. These kids I would sometimes see be worse than the kids at public school, worse than like the white kids or the other like Matthew, whatever my other friends at school. In terms of just like character, in terms of like language and things like that, and like so to see that kind of disconnect, I was shocked. I'm like, well, as for little kid, I was trying to figure it out. Okay, I thought you're going to Islamic school, you have, and for me, I never went, and I was never able to kind of get go. So I always thought I was like at a back foot in terms of my Islamic knowledge. Islamic knowledge compared to everyone that went, Sirah knowledge, Quran knowledge, Dua, everything, right? But when I'm just looking at them, I'm like, it was a complete contrast to what I was thinking, and I was like trying to make sense of it. I don't know if Abdullah, if you want to ring in there, but it was something not till later on I realized. Look, Dave, like you said, dude, most of the kids that went there didn't want to be there. They wanted to mess around, and it was just another avenue, was just to have fun with your friends and not really take home, what the intention of Islamic school was, right? To embody an Islamic character, Islamic personality. From what I thought was the goal of that.
Yeah. So the one thing, the topic kind of pivoted a little bit from public school versus Islamic school, but it's okay. I think it's a good tangent. From just Saturday or Sunday school. But to add on to that, I think that's very true. I think when Muslims are surrounded by other Muslims, like when I grew up, man, we just had white kids in our classes, like Tom, Dick, Harry, and like Jason. You know what I'm saying? Kevin was a homie for sure. He still is. Jerry. So
a lot of friends, bro. Mashallah.
the guys, they held it together. We held it together from what we could, right? So the thing is, like, when you're around Muslims and when you're around non-Muslims and kuffar, when you're around kuffar and they exhibit behavior, free mixing, maybe doing some inappropriate things, watching inappropriate things, or saying, rapping, this, that, you feel like, man, these guys are just not Muslim. They don't understand. They're ignorant. Whereas sometimes, and then when you see your Muslim buddy doing something, you say, man, Ahmed's doing that, or Talib is doing this, right? So I'm gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? You feel like a sense of like, okay, so they kind of, because they're in that environment where they're just surrounded by Muslims, they feel the need to mimic the kuffar, and a lot of times they find it more acceptable than people that are maybe just among the kuffar and realize, man, these are just the others, and I'm gonna do my thing, put my head down, make the lines that I need, just to not get a swirly and a wedgie at lunch, and then that's it. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting how that dynamic works.
That's a very interesting point, actually, because my mom would actually say this, where it's like when we're in a primarily non-Muslim, very much non-Muslim neighborhood, especially when we moved, right? Like maybe two other kids at school who are Muslim, and like one of those is a guy, so you only have like one other Muslim friend, right?
Exactly.
But then my mom would always be opposed to. I don't know how much she meant this, but she would be opposed to moving to a very primary Muslim neighborhood where it's like a lot of Muslims. Because she's like, okay, over here, you see the non-Muslims, you see them doing quote unquote bad stuff, and you're like, okay, you're not like them. You're not non-Muslim. You're a Muslim. Okay, you're gonna hold your principles. But then when you go to these very populated Muslim neighborhoods, where it's like then obviously the chances of some Muslim not misbehaving or engaging in those acts obviously increases because there's just more people there. And now when you as their son as a kid see, oh, Muslims are also doing this quote unquote bad stuff, where it's like, oh wait, no, maybe I can do this now. It's not just the non-Muslims. Muslims are doing this too. So that's a very interesting point.
I think it definitely blurs the lines, definitely, from that point of view. And then growing up, when I actually kind of like, was able to make sense of things and, see what was going on, it was really Islamic school or not, what really mattered, what made the difference between a person and, you could really tell, from like the front face is that, okay, does this guy know, what he's saying, what he's teaching? I feel like that's something I was always kind of looking for amongst friends. I mean, like Abdullah said, it was really cool with those white kids. That's cool. Black kids, Hispanic kids, and it'd be funny because I would veer towards the conservative white kids. Like those would be my homies at school, like the very Christian white kids, because at least they had a sense of like morality to them and lines and stuff like that. And then when I would look over to my Islamic school friends, man, it would be the opposite. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, that was crazy.
Are you trying to say you're better than them?
No, I was trying. I was like, what's going on? But yeah, I was better than them.
So, Deva, one thing I want to ask you is real quick. So, you mentioned in your time in Pakistan, you learned like you got a type of Islamic learning in Pakistan, like during the school day, right? So, did that environment feel better and more, I guess, pure to you and sincere to you than when you went to Sunday school in America? So like you learn like Islamic studies and stuff back in Pakistan, right? So I guess, do you think they did a better job? Because a lot of times we always hear
at my school, not like any after school or programs, right? You're saying
at your school, at your school, because oftentimes we hear, man, Western education is the best. They teach you critical thinking. They teach you this, and then everything third world countries are just seen as like, okay, you just memorize and you're not learning anything, and everyone is also doing the same thing they're doing in America. That's what we hear, like over here, like. I just want to know your perspective on that.
I think it's an accurate observation that in terms, if you're asking in terms of just like the way the school system is set up, very much you're just tested on your recall, and I think to an extent here too. But over there, it's just like, dude, I remember, like, you guys know what doing rata lagana means?
No, can you explain that?
In Urdu, it's like if you say like, I have this book here in front of me. It says ruled index cards, and say this is like an answer to a question. Like I just memorized that this says ruled index cards, and then on the test it asked me, hey, what does it say on the first page of that book or first page of that? And you answer ruled index cards without like having any understanding of what ruled index cards means. Why is that there? Like you're just doing ratta of like you're just memorizing like a book. Say you're memorizing the first line of some book you're reading. First, that's what you're tested on. So so in terms of quote unquote Western education being better than Islamic education, I don't think, or not Islamic education. This is just Pakistani education system, which is modeled after the Western education system. If anything, these are British themed schools, British style schools that they're trying to emulate. And no, I think it was done very poorly. Even I remember doing a final exam for my Islamiyat question, and it was some Siraat question. I forgot exactly what. And I was like, dude, what exact sentence did it say on that set? I was like, because I was upset at myself for misplacing like a couple words in the sentence, and because I knew I'd be docked for that. It's like it means the same thing because I misplaced like if I put a different sentence structure of answering it's not like
if you have a comma in the wrong place, or if you have some sort of mix up in like the order of your sentences,
but
you get docked for that.
Not even that. I'm saying it means your answer means the same thing, but you just said it in a different way.
Wow.
Something you get docked. Wow. Right. So at least I went to school until 5th grade. I mean, that's how we were tested. That's how we were.
Man, over here, because I taught in Saturday school here, right? and we would do anything to give them the points. Like if they even had something that was close to the answer, bro, we would be like +1. You get it, you know what I'm saying? But you're saying it's so strict over there. They don't, even if you get something that's close to it, but it's worded differently, you get dog points.
Right, yeah, I'm just you're right. The point I'm just trying to make is like, again, critical thinking. That's not part of, like, that's not a at least what I went until, it wasn't like a goal of this education system up until up until 5th grade. It was like, it was just like you memorize the thing and you do it, except for maybe math, and that's why I like math, because that stuff, like, you have to conceptually understand to be able to answer. But like like social studies, science, and like these English stories and stuff that you're tested on, it wasn't, you're not tested on like your writing ability. You're just tested on how, like, recta you how you memorized whatever text from the book, and your test was that exact thing, and you just memorize it and you type it in, write it in. So but I mean, besides the point, I wanted to get to, I wanted to get to your guys' teaching experience. So I don't have teaching experience in Sunday schools or Saturday schools. You guys do. I want to ask what maybe talk briefly about your experience there, and then and I guess anything else you want to highlight there. But this was, as I maybe we can start with you. What was your teaching experience like? What did you see? Is there anything you wish you had done better? Anything that you wish the board would have done better? Or anything like that?
I mean, dude, it was the same behavior. I mean, it was, I personally taught younger kids, so about third graders to fifth graders. And that's kind of the age range I taught. And again, the kids, it was a Sunday school or Saturday school. The kids just wanted to have fun, right? Their parents kind of just put them in there, obviously with the exception of one or two maybe students that actually wanted to learn. But again, as a teacher, it was challenging every single day just to get their attention. They just wanted to make noises, have fun, or get the joke, get the laugh, from their friends, and just, spend the time to goof off. But, the thing is, for me, knowing that going into that teaching role, at the Sunday school, at the Saturday school, I was able to kind of adapt to that because I knew that was going to be the case, as was the case of my friends growing up and seeing Sunday schools, seeing Saturday schools, growing up and hearing stories about that. So I mean, as a teacher, I was able to kind of adapt to that and make, instead of being heavy on, okay, here's a Siraat lesson, right? Because I taught Islamic studies, right? So we'd go through stories, and instead of teaching the story in a very methodical, very textbook manner, to get the kids' attention, I made it more of a story, right? Something that they felt like they were involved in the story, right? I mean, and that would take them from cracking jokes and not listening to being invested into the class, and hopefully, inshallah, taking the substance, the concepts, the lessons from the story, we're teaching, hopefully they're able to take that home and kind of think about that. But overall, I mean, it was a positive experience. Abdullah, if you want to share similar experiences to that, or
yeah, I think engaging is very difficult, especially if someone does not want to be there. And luckily in my class, man, I had some.
Out of the students you taught, what percent would want to be there? What percent would you feel don't want to be there?
I was right about, I was right about to get into that actually. So, I would say a good, I would say a good third, like, no, the absolutely did not want to be there. I would say like 20% of the students did not want to be there at all.
20.
Then I would say a good like 40% of the students, maybe more than that. I would say like 50% of students were just kind of doing their thing. They wouldn't speak up too much. They wouldn't, cause too much ruckus. They would just kind of do their thing. And then I would say that last 20%, I think I did my math right. 20-30%, they really enjoyed it. They really enjoyed it. So,
okay.
I would say like sometimes like it would be easy to focus on the kids that are enjoying it, right? And like the people who raise their hand but thing is, you want to get the person in the back that maybe is a little bit shy, right? I saw myself in those kids, honestly, because in school I was in the back. I was the one that was maybe writing notes, and I would say, hey, if you don't want to raise your hand, write something down, you can hand it to me. Hey, if you like there's a level of curiosity you have to get out of the kids, because you have to understand that their parents, like, in their mind, they're like, man, I could be home right now watching cartoons, playing Roblox. I don't know what they do nowadays, and all these other things, watching like Twitch. but they're in Saturday, Sunday school, right? So you want to make it engaging. You want to make it seem like, man, like you should come, you should enjoy. I'm gonna let you have fun, but I want like I want you to get at least one thing every day, right? And the thing for me as a teacher, it was pretty difficult. When you're a student, 50 minutes seems like 3 hours. When you're a teacher, 50 minutes seems like 5 minutes because you're trying to get so much into like that lesson, right?
Interesting.
I think a big thing, honestly, was taking the material that was in their books. I taught like fifth graders and making it so they actually understand the concepts, not from a level where they feel like, man, I'm proud of my deen, and I want to continue learning this when I go on, because Saturday school is going to end eventually. My interaction with them is going to end eventually. But if there's a seed of a love of Islam that you can put into them, I think that's the most important thing, and I think that's what I try to focus on.
I think it's a very, very great point. I think, especially the last thing you said about, yes, this is a very limited reaction you have with them, and mashallah, you're I'm sure a great teacher, and from what I know, you appear to be a good teacher, and not everyone's like that. I don't know about it. And without having that mentality of, okay, there's a limited reaction with them. And if I can do whatever I can in my capacity to plant that seed and to nurture that seed, if they already have it, and not just don't just help them memorize these stories, but implant that love for the deen, for sure. I think that's a great point. And then because you want to make them, you want to make that engine move by itself. You want to make make him a personality who loves. And he's not going to school because his parents are telling him. He's not reading Quran because his parents are telling him. But he's learning this because he understands this is for the sake of Allah, and this is what I'm going to be held accountable for in the eyes of Allah. I think that's a great point.
Mm-hmm. And so subhanAllah, so some of the questions the kids ask you, you're like, man, they're really thinking now. Like they ask questions like, they ask some philosophical questions like, how can Allah, about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about the universe, where it came from. They'll get into some crazy, amazing topics, but you have to give them that chance to explore. You can't just say, hey, you learn this, memorize this, right? And I think, again, there were some students in the class that definitely did cause a ruckus. Like they would, make noises. They would try getting the laughs, try getting the lulls. And oftentimes it's easy to ignore those kids or like put them in timeout. But I think if you're able to impact even them, I think they do amazing outside of classroom settings. I think classroom settings, are good for some kids. I don't think they're good for some kids. I'll be honest. They need to be out. They need to be exploring the world. They need to be engaging with actually real topics. And you have to, engage with them. Engagement is very hard. And this is coming from someone who never raised his hand in school until I got older. I think it's a tough thing to do.
I want to make one point real quick. So I think Abdullah, not every teacher is like you, and not every principal, every school board is like you. And the reason I say that is because I think, and this is what I want. Why are you guys laughing, dude? Why are you guys laughing?
That's the comment section. There's because we're guys trolling. Don't worry about him.
So the point I was trying to make was, I think parents, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, was put their kids in these schools expecting a certain outcome. Like, I'm not gonna. We're just gonna go about our normal week, and then they're gonna go to school. Or I'm gonna work. I'm gonna provide them food, and then on Sundays, whatever. On Saturdays, I'm gonna go drop them off to Islamic studies, Islamic school, and then boom, these guys are gonna become the mu'min. These guys are gonna be like the sahaba. Like these guys are gonna be top of their game in terms of their deen. And unless they have mashallah, great teachers and principals, whatever, like you guys, and what I've observed is not everyone is like that, unfortunately. And to expect the total tarbiyah of your child to be done in these few hours of the week is a grave underestimation. And you can't expect that as a parent. I think your job as a parent is to, raise good Muslim kids. This is, Allah will hold you accountable for this. A good, I think, what does it say, that the form of sadaqah jariyah is a righteous child who's gonna make dua for you. And if you don't instill this in him, that's on the day of judgment. This is a negative in your scale. So I think one of the messages is we're trying to get out is we're talking to the young adults who want to have families. We want to have families, inshallah, and may Allah bless us with pious children. We want to I mean, we want to understand the challenges that these students, that the not students, that our kids will face, especially if we're going to stay in the West, and how we're going to nurture them, and how we're going to, and if we want to, still have these Sunday schools and for the right purpose, where it's like, yes, those few hours are great. That they're continuing to fall in love with the Deen, but that, I think, that happens at home. That happens with the parents, because you're with them. Most of the time, that's the most of the time of the child sees the parent the most. I think that's all. That's the point I wanted to make. What do you guys think about that?
I'm gonna let Zai jump in. I think, and then I'll take it from there.
As a teacher, having those kids for like 1 hour, 2 hours, I think just igniting that spark in them and making their engine move by themselves is the biggest thing. A funny story that I would often do as a teacher, that would like throw the kids off. I sometimes we would start the book opening or start the class opening the book right to the lesson we're going to cover today, or to the story we're going to cover today. But at times I would just close the book and throw it on my desk. And then they're like, "What? Whoa!" Like they don't see a teacher doing that, and like unconventional teaching methods like that. Not only that does that hook the student, but just getting conveying in those 50 minutes, 55 minutes, conveying the lesson or the chapter you want to convey, but in a way that you're not telling them, right? You're I forgot the word. It's called enthymeme, right? Where you give a lesson, right? But in a way that you don't give it from A, B, C, right? Or A through Z. You don't spell out every detail for them, but you give a lesson, with the givens, with everything set up, but you allow the student to draw the conclusion himself, right? So that drove a lot of the spark that I was able to ignite in a lot of these students, where I didn't necessarily tell them the end of the story, or I didn't necessarily tell them the setup to the story, or of the lesson, right? And have them really put it together and say in a way where, okay, you know what, they come to the conclusion themselves, right? So then they can take that concept that you take from the story, and now, oh wait, I remember, from this story I heard from the Sahaba, from the Prophet Sallallahu, from the Sirah. Okay, maybe something else in life comes congruent to that. I can derive that as well and take that home with me, and that kind of builds them. And I've seen it personally, but creating that spark, I think it was one of the best things.
MashaAllah, we have another very exceptional instructor. What's that? MashaAllah, the ascetic. MashaAllah, Mubarak. Abdullah, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna give an example. I was gonna give like a metaphor for Islamic school, or the mentality of what Islamic school is for a lot of people, and the reality of it as well, is that it's like taking a frog that lives in a pond, right? And that frog is going around in water that has algae, has a lot of all this bacteria, and taking that frog and putting it into fresh water, cleaning that frog up, right? And then, but what happens is on Monday, the frog will jump back into the swamp, right? So it's a tough process, because we live in an environment, even as a person that works in corporate America, right? We are in an environment that is a lot of times antithetical to Islam, and the mercy of Islam, and even the way people dress, the way people interact, the way people want to enjoy themselves, right? It's very different to what Islam teaches, right? And we have to understand that a lot of times that when we're giving these reminders are for us as well. And also we need to build this within ourselves too. Always have a place where we return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like there's like, no matter where we go, no matter what our day to day is, we always have this connection to Allah, connection to the Quran, connection to good brothers, right? You need to keep that good company around you. But also we have to understand that to build a community, to build a society that has these values is a much bigger task. And Saturday school, Sunday school, the dars you go to, the halakha you go to, the event you go to, for like a quick iman boost is good. But this is not something where it's a long-lasting solution for the Muslims at large. And we have to understand this, right? That's a reality we have to understand going forward. But one thing I want to say is, like, I didn't go to Saturday school, I didn't go to Sunday school, but my father would tell me a lot of stories about great Sahaba, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, other Sahaba, stories of Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, stories of Hazrat Ali. And these stories would oftentimes just, the lesson at the end would just be proud that you're Muslim, right? And one thing that I would always tell my students is, look at the kuffar, look at the non-Muslims, how proud they are of their sins, right? And how shy oftentimes we are of our Islam. How come we're not proud of our Islam? How come we're not proud? And they're the ones that should be shy, right? So you want to build that pride. So like you mentioned earlier, Dave, a really great point. You want to be like that starter of that machine, pulling that engine, and inshallah, khair, the engine can continue going forward and forward.
MashaAllah, very, very, I think, powerful points you made there. I think we're coming close on time. Last question I want to ask. I think we addressed a lot of things. I think we, hit it hard. The question I want to ask you guys is: would you send your kids to Sunday weekend school of this nature?
Or even full-time Islamic school? Is that also in the question or no?
I don't know. I was, when I thought of this question, I thought more of in like a, because I know we all went to public school. I was thinking of it, to be honest, in that sense. Um, um, let's I
think,
guess,
let's
I was going to
focus
say,
it, I think.
let's assume public school attendance. Like I think okay. I think generally, if most Muslims go to public school, correct? Am
We
I
all
wrong
did.
in that information? So in that sense, would you send your kid, you're forced to send your kid to public school, and then would you send your kid to then these Saturday schools, Sunday schools?
You're the closest to this in your
So
life.
I think, so I think I would be willing to, but I would do a good job kind of vetting the school. I think from a high level, I guess if I have understanding of who's running the environment, if I have understanding of kind of the lessons they teach, what perspective they teach, do they teach Islam holistically, right? Or are they just kind of getting through with it, making them memorize? I think all that's important. I would definitely not be against it, because I think reminders are good. Having those reminders for a child is good. But if my child really is not benefiting from that environment of just sitting, for 4 or 5 more hours a day, I'll consider, hey, maybe this is not right for them. But again, I would make sure that Islamic tarbiyah is, inshallah, pressed at home, and those reminders are given at home. And maybe the weekends, you take the kid out, I definitely think the idea of classrooms and the idea of learning through classrooms, I think is a little bit antiquated, and that's a topic for another time. But I wouldn't be against it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'd be on the same note. I think at least starting off when the child is young, maybe environments that hone discipline would be good. Like just memory, being hard, memorizing, and whether it be a Quran or a Hadith, things like that. I think definitely there's benefit in that, and then that's something I think I missed growing up myself, where I felt like I was on the back foot of maybe just basic knowledge, knowing that. But again, as they grow older and the bigger stress is at home, definitely creating that creating that environment at home, where I know the child would have that confidence. Wherever he goes, public school, Islamic school, Saturday school, they know themselves, and they know their identity as a Muslim, and what that holds.
Good. I think Adam. I don't know if I would agree with you all, but I appreciate your guys' perspectives. My viewpoint on this is, number one, okay, what am I hoping to accomplish from from a program like this? Which would be I would think Islamic knowledge, and then an addition Islamic knowledge, additional Islamic knowledge, because I like we discussed today, that the foundation, it starts, in my opinion, at home, and if it's not done at home, I think you're putting your trust in a program that the success rate, it's not 100%. Whereas at home you have a lot more control over that, and I think it starts again. The Muslim family structure, the way it's set up is the man's the leader of the household, and with strong personality there, and with a strong leadership there, who has a structure to how he wants to raise his kids, has a curriculum for their development in school, development in Islam, development in his physical health and all sports and everything. I think it has to start there. And obviously, and the first madrasa of the child is the lap of the mother, right? So number two, after having the strong leadership, is number two. I think having a righteous partner to raise your kids with, and then from there, I was just thinking, I personally would want control over what my students are learning. So if I was to trust a school, if Islamic school, even a public school, or with their education, the Sunday school, I would vet it quite closely myself, where it's like either I'm involved in its programming, assisting with its teaching, or do a pretty thorough check of like what they're going through. That's what I would do, and then I would make the decision of if I want to drop my kids off here, and for these whatever half this Sunday, or they could be doing something else. Maybe I could be teaching them. Maybe a friend of mine or an uncle of mine, maybe my dad or with you guys, mashallah, could be teaching my kids, inshallah. So that's my perspective on this.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
We didn't all agree, but that's okay. That's why I like this. Different opinion, different viewpoints.
Yeah, I think Abdullah, the last thing I want to say is you brought in a very interesting perspective, and I want to hit this maybe on our next episode, maybe in a future episode, of like, yes, you brought in the frog example, right? The society that the person's in has a drastic effect, and the community that person's in, and the school he's going to, and the work environment he's involved in has a drastic effect in the development of that child. And you can do only so much with these, what you call, I think rightfully so, Iman boost lectures, events, programs, for that person's future. So I wanna understand this a little bit more. I wanna pick your brain a little bit on this. Maybe invite a guest on who can enlighten us on this, on what's the solution for this, inshallah. So if you guys have any last minute thoughts, otherwise we can wrap it up for today.
Yeah, last minute thought is just man, just the friends that someone surrounds themselves with. All it takes is one bad friend to take you on a really, really long and dark path. So I guess that's a dua that I would always have for any of our children, inshallah. Just surround them with good company and good people.
Inshallah.
All right. Okay. And with that being said, we'll conclude here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.